Hello, everybody. Okay, 12:02 here in Costa Rica. So we are having stormy weather this morning, and we're having electricity come in and out, internet come in and out. If we have a problem with it, we'll try to do a hotspot. But you know how that goes with hotspots. It may not be strong enough to carry the signal. So let's go while we still can and jump on it. You can start sending your questions right now if you would. I'm going to handle one or two that came in right away. For Tejas from Perth, Western Australia, mate, love, how are you, lovey? Yantra, how do you use Yantra in practice? Okay, so Tejas, and for everybody else who wants to learn about Tantric Yoga, so mantra, Yantra, visualization of a deity, puja or ritual, these all go together to make Tantric Yoga practice. Sometimes there are some postures, but it's not like a Hatha Yoga posture class. There's just specific postures that would be used in certain ways to adjust the subtle body of your body so that it more closely resonates with the subtle energy body of the deity, right? Okay. So for specificity of talking about Yantra, which Tejaswini has asked about, Yantra can be used in two ways, right? So we always have outer, inner, secret, and most profound levels of practice. Outer level of practice with Yantra, first, is to draw our own Yantra. That's a very good concentration practice. So we learn how to draw our own Yantra. And for that, there's many books and online courses and things like that. So when I had to do Yantra practice, it was as part of a deity yoga practice. I would have to draw the Yantra, right? And now there are specific requirements of what kind of materials you would use to draw the Yantra on. White birch, copper, gold, paper. What type of ink? Is it etched in, or do you use blood or some other kind of pigment, right? So there's many different ways. You can look those up. That's the outer level of Yantra practice. On the outer level of Yantra practice, we do like that. We do an external puja to the deity, to the goddess or the god or the Dakini, Yogini, whomever it is, lineage master, whatever. Or your own Atma Puja. You have your own astrology chart made into a Yantra, and you learn how to do Atma Puja to remind you of your divinity, of your own essence, self, as Nirmanakaya, right? As one of the three emanations, Shiva, Shakti, and individual. So there's all these different ways we can do puja that involve Yantra and different types of Yantra, right? So we would do a puja. We would place a Yantra that we've made, ideally speaking, in front of us at eye level, usually at arm's length. So if I would have my arm straight out, eye to arm length at the wall, the Yantra goes there. And for beginner, a lamp, a ghee lamp is always recommended, but it can be a candle, beeswax candle with no lead, can be placed in front of it a bit lower. So you get a full vision of the Yantra, but it's candlelight. And this is because it's usually done for deep concentration, usually done during the dark hours of night. And if you're doing it in the daytime, you still want deep concentration. Usually you go into a dark room, right? So when I was doing this a lot, I used to have a loft in the second floor, or the loft within my office space, within my house. So it was in my house, you had to go into an office space. Within that, you went into a loft. So it was very dark, even in the middle of the day. And I would use the candle or the ghee lamp this way. Now what do? You stare at the center, the very center bindu, point of the Yantra, right? And then you would concentrate using your mantra with your breath, how you've been instructed to do that, right? One per breath, etc., whatever mantra that you have for the deity. Here, Tejaswini is asking about, I think, for the mantra to use with the goddess. I think one of the Dasha Mahavijjas you might be referring to. So you concentrate there, you do the mantra, and you allow that to deepen you, right? Now, in the real, of course, you do the opening mandala chants first, and you do your three poisons breath to make sure you're all ready and set, and then you begin, right? You might do dhyana shlokam first to invoke that deity or that guru or that master, whatever. But all that's, part of that format. I'm talking about the heart of it now, is to concentrate on the Yantra very deeply and to have it become one, the visual and the making of the sound of the mantra and the feeling of listening for the vibrational quality. I say listening, but it's not with your ears. Feeling for the vibrational quality of the mantra itself. We call that piercing the mantra, right? That's how we would go about practicing mantra yantra yoga in that outer inner zone of practice. If you're more on the outer again, you would do the whole puja and the yantra or yagya, fire ceremony or puja, and the yantra would be on the altar. And then you would make the mantras as offerings and generate the power of the mantra, directing it into the yantra. And at that point, you would, at the very end, you would take a certain mudra and you would then shoot the whole summation of all the yantra's energy and all the mantra's energy that you repeated into the yantra and actually touch the yantra with your fingers. So you bring it out from your heart, you place it in the yantra. That is to say that you then externally created a vessel, the yantra, which then you brought the mantra of the deity into that yantra, so that the yantra is now holding the energy body of the deity, the yogini, the dakini, the guru, the mahasiddha, whatever, to some degree, right? And it holds it there. And then you perform this daily, 3 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever. It keeps getting more and more charged until you hear the fantastical stories of yantras that have been fully awakened, meaning they become real conscious beings. This can happen with a linga as well, Mercury linga. And then they have to be maintained with offerings and so forth because they're actual conscious being. And then you can relate to that yantra as if your deity has taken form for you right there. This is the other way to do it in the outer level of Tantra as well, Tantric Yoga, where we're always trying to have this avesha, right? Samavesha, where we come up and it comes down to us and we meet. But here, particularly, we're lifting our mind consciousness to try to meet the deity's energy, but we're asking the deity to come down and pierce the yantra and fill that yantra and become a sacred instrument that we can use for our practice. Then some people will take that yantra and fold it up into silk and then put it in their pocket or purse, whatever, and keep it with them all day long. Others will keep on the altar. Most people will not allow other people to see it, so that it doesn't drain the Shakti, you know. There's all outer rules around this kind of practice, okay? So if you're using it in more of an inner way, you're using the yantra as a visual focal point with the mantra, so that you help to pierce deeper the energy of the mantra because your mind's not so scattered now, right? Not that it's so much scattered on the outer level either, but here you're going internally. Eventually you're not even doing the mantra out loud, right? So you're trying to feel the energy of the mantra, have it awaken within you. So in Tantra, in Tantric Yoga, and Tantra in general, we're always trying to create a visual mandala or an experience of a visual reality that is imagination. We're making a visualization. We're inducing a slight trance trying to see this thing. But it's extremely important to understand that we're trying to gain the piercing power of that, what we're trying to invoke, in the visualization. Here, with the yantra, we're actually putting it right into the physical yantra itself. Eventually, at this more higher inner level of practice, we want to be visualizing the deity completely with our mind and the yantra and the bindu point all coalescing at the heart of the deity and the mantra all awakening, and you want to call in the power of those deities to come from the blissful realms, the perfected realms, the enlightened realms, so they come and occupy your visualization. In this way, the visualization itself acts as a yantra, a holder, right? A vase, a kumbha that holds the energy of the deity. And eventually, of course, in Tantra, this is all what I'm talking about is a generation practice called generation practice. Eventually, we want to get to completion practice. And that means that the energy of the deity comes into us, and our body, mind, speech complex becomes that yantra, which holds the energy of the deity. So if we've reached up through our practice and our devotion and our clarity of mind, understanding the view correctly, getting proper instructions from the teacher on how to do this, we've reached up this way, towards the heavens, towards the blissful realm, symbolically up. And they have come down to sit in our yantra on the outside first, but later in the completion phase, our yantra of our own body, speech, and mind. This is said that, the practitioner is then a Vidyadhara, one who has the energy of the deity, has the energy of the mantra. A Vidyadhara is said to be the only person who can pass on a mantra to another person. Yes, I know it's popular to put them in books these days and talk about them on website threads. You won't see that happening on our thread at all. But they're already out there everywhere, Dharma. Why can't we write them and talk about them here? Well, you can do whatever you want. I won't engage in it. You know, you can do whatever you want. I support you, but I won't engage in it myself because it's a very sacred process to engage directly with the energy body of a deity. It's a very sacred process, and we have to be very pure about our intention of what we're doing. And when we start talking about it like so intellectually, it has a lot of ego strutting as well involved with it, we lose that connection, we lose that power, and we don't want to engage with that here, right? So you have to receive that mantra from a Vidyadhara, a holder of the mantra's energy, who gained that through completion practice. Excuse me, I'm just getting over chest cold. That's what you've heard people say, okay, the mantra is alive for that person. And now the mantra can be given to somebody else because it's alive for that person. That is what's necessary there. So again, Tejas, just to recap, 2 methodologies. 1, charging an outer yantra in generation practice. 2, just using the outer yantra visually to focus in deeper as you connect to the energy of the mantra and becoming that deity. Okay? So hopefully that covers that a little bit. Oh, I jumped right into question and answer without doing the announcements. So Suki will be upset with me. Let me give those to you. There's 3 spots left for yogas of dream, sleep, and death in Costa Rica. There's 3 spots left for that one. November 4th to the 8th. November 4th to 8th, we're going to do the theory and practice at the first level of dream, sleep, yoga, and of death. How to transverse, how to go across when you die, basically. What happens when you die from yogic perspective, how to deal with that, how to practice on death through the death process into the other side. Okay, we'll talk all about that November 4 to 8, 3 spots left. 4 spots left for Ayurveda and the Vajradeha. So 4 spots left for people that want to go to Kerala, India with us, receive a diagnosis from Dr. Ravi, my personal physician, who is a brilliant tantric yogin, by the way, and receive treatment from him, and we'll meet once a day for a class where for those 3 weeks I'm going to discuss every day the subtleties of the so-called energy body or subtle body, and why I really believe so few authors and video blogger types out there know really anything of what they're talking about with this today. It's quite incredible. So I want to give you the real idea. And people always ask me questions like this on the thread, and they used to ask me on Tantra Yoga Now, and I'd say, no, I'm sorry, I can't really talk about that because it should be thoroughly covered so as not to leave mistaken ideas and lead to new age usage of this material. Here we're going to thoroughly cover it in Kerala, okay? That's November 25 to December 15. November 25 to December 15. That's Ayurveda and the Vajradeha, means the immutable body in Kerala. If you want to sign up for any of these workshops at all, you can write to Trikapath, Trika, Trikapath, at gmail.com. Trikapath at gmail.com. Okay? February in Costa Rica, because a few of you actually back-channeled me just in the past few days about this, so I'm going to talk about this one too. We have the 2-year schedule pretty much on the board right now. We're just finalizing the last little bit of dates, and we'll get out to you as soon as we can. We'll put it up on the Facebook group, send it out in emails. In Costa Rica in February, we're going to have a back-to-back training. One is Awakening the Red Bindu, that is understanding how to work with emotions and passion from the Mahasiddha tradition. We have emotions, we have passion. How do we work with those to liberate ourselves rather than be bound deeper into that kind of karmic conditioning and samsara by those emotions and passions? That's the first 5 days or so. And then after that, in February, we have right away following with like 1 day break in between, 6 realms and Enneagram. I believe that is 5 days. And that will be a 6 realms teaching, Enneagram teaching, okay? And I think you all know what that is. That'll be the first level of that, where we deal with Enneagram of personality which helps us understand how to produce character change, where to focus in our spiritual work in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment conduct of body, speech, and mind. And also then also then the 6 realms, how to develop a deep understanding of them so we can catch ourselves when we're slightly not awake, even thinking we're awake, but it's taken on another form, right? So it feels like it's awake or aware, but it's another form, which is causing more karmic binding. We call these the 6 realms, where we can become fixated. Okay, anyway, that schedule will be out soon. Good. Alrighty. So I see a lot of people are online. Hello, nice to see everybody, but I don't see any questions. Oh, that's interesting. So no one has a question? You had one. Why don't you go until somebody writes one for me?
Okay. What is impeccability from a Dharma perspective?
What does impeccability mean from a Dharma perspective? Impeccability, we should always think about it as, take a page from the warrior book. So the warriors are trained to try to be aware at all times. They push that, flame of awareness. Scroll up? They're not there. Can you come and help me? So impeccability is about training a certain sense of being very, very, very present. So we call this kind of training in our school, in Tantric Yoga, we call presence, and real time. And a lot of people talk about present, and a lot of people talk about being present, and a lot of people talk about presence, but actually it's not what we would talk about at all. It's quite a lower level of awareness that's actually a subset of the intellect. When people say, oh, I was in presence, I was in a state of presence, all you have to do is ask, well, how long were you in presence for? If someone says longer than a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds, then it's definitely not presence, because presence is really the state of enlightenment. When presence moments become flowing presence, then we're in the unbroken state of enlightenment. So this is quite high, very high for us. We might be lucky if we get it for a few seconds during meditation each day. So what is impeccability in relation to that? Well, impeccability is the ability, and what you're training to be is aware, hyper aware, in a sense of relaxing, not in a frantic sense, but relaxing into such a state of awareness that the body, the speech, and the mind, that your conduct, your feeling, and what comes out of feeling from your mouth, speech, and your thoughts are all becoming pervaded by a certain awareness, which then brings on, which you could say at the base level, mindfulness, or responsibility for the activity of those 3, body, speech, and mind. So impeccability is the striving for an unbroken confluence of body, speech, and mind in each moment of each activity. That's the key. In each moment of each activity. And I made the reference to the warrior tradition because, if you're on a battlefield and people are just all around you, it's a real different thing than when you're sparring one-on-one in a school of some sort where you're learning a martial art, let's say, or martial sport. So you cannot have a lapse in your awareness whatsoever when you're a warrior on a battlefield, because stuff is going on everywhere around you, dangers everywhere. So that's the image that people hold. But sometimes if we hold that image when we're trying to cultivate impeccability, it can bring on too much of a strenuous effort, create too much kind of heat, we could say heat in the body, which is not really conducive to nice spiritual development in the end. So we don't want to have that frantic sense of awareness. But impeccability is like, when someone forgets something over and over and over, and you said, did you forget to bring that thing again, Or someone forgets to meet you at a certain time over and over and over. It shows a lack of impeccability. It shows that they're not consciously engaged in their body, speech, and mind and what they're doing. So we want to cultivate that. We can see that best through our outer conduct, of course. Okay? Is that good? Any?
Okay, so there's an instruction, read them to you.
Suki's going to read me the questions because for some reason they're not coming up on these. I don't know why.
Question, the colors red, blue, and white in Buddhist meditation. Wondering about these colors, why these colors?
That's a question?
Yeah.
The colors red, blue, and white?
I heard you talking about the colors red, blue, and white in Buddhist meditation. Why these colors? Wondered about this 12 years ago for the first time.
I don't know the reference that you're making, whoever's asking the question, Daniela, to red, blue, and white colors in a Buddhist meditation. Are you talking about seeing colors that occur to you while you're meditating? I'm not sure. But let me just say, all I can think of right now is, sorry? Yeah, is that the red, blue, and white relates to the three channels, the three core channels and the three bindus. So they also relate to certain purified chakra colors. Chakras can emanate certain colors as well at times. So the channels can emanate colors, chakras can emanate colors, pranas can emanate colors, so many different things can emanate colors. But the red, blue, and white significance of those in our system is that the blue represents the central channel, the pure energy, pure spaciousness. In fact, you can see over this shoulder right here is what we call Anuttara Shiva. Actually, it's all reversed like a mirror. There we go. So Anuttara Shiva, actually this tanka, this one here, should be all blue. There you see the lotus has some pink and some green, and the halo has some yellow, orange, and there's white. Actually, I asked my painter of this beautiful painting, Dinesh, please do this all blue. And he came back after a month and showed me this and said, cannot be done all blue. With the paint that I use, it will just look like a washout. So we said, okay, so we settled for this. But in your mind, this should represent all blue. It should be like completely blue. This represents a central channel, pure spaciousness. When we think about Shiva as pure spaciousness, that's what we're thinking of. So the blue represents the central channel or central essence or heart. So the blue bindu at the heart space, that's blue as well. Same color as central channel, right? Usually a cobalt blue. Some traditions have a little darker, like, what's that one called? When there's specks of gold in that stone. What's that stone? Precious, not semi-precious stone. It's blue and it's got lots of specks of gold in it. Lapis, thank you. Someone's awake. Lapis lazuli. So that's also the color that sometimes it gets. Now, the right channel in our system, the right channel is ruby red. The left channel is moonlight, white, nectar. So this is how it's distributed in channels. Red being obviously the passion side, and white being more of the white bindu related mental consciousness side, right? Mental energy side of things. So the red, white, and blue relate like this. If we start as an aware being, that means the blue central channel is open, we're aware. And that means the red and white are also both crystal clear and aware. And there's no impurity in them. That's how our original nature is, actually, from the first moment. But we grasp onto a self-image, we grasp onto individuality, that immediately dulls the central channel with blue. And it attains a different kind of dull hue. That shuts these guys down as well, these gals. And there's no more beautiful ruby red and white there anymore. And what happens here is that these two channels then take turns expressing samsara. You know, introversion, extroversion, passion, mentation, but the ways we get caught up. So if it's, excuse me, if it's getting caught up in the mind, then the white channel is representing all of the mental concepts that we're grabbing onto, forming self-images around. If we're getting caught up in the right channel with passion, we're getting caught up in identifying with emotions and emotional reactivity, and sexuality, lust. So, you know, all the passions of greed and envy and anger and so forth, all that's over here. Tibetans do a little bit different, but this is how it is in our system. Also, in our system, it's always that the male and female have a red channel on the right and have a white channel on the left. That's not to say that the Tibetans are wrong by switching it for the sexes. It's saying that when you go into that level of the energy body, I've talked about this before, when you get outer in the less essential, more surface levels of the energy body, not quite at the level of where an acupuncture meridian is yet, but not deep in the core three channels I just described, their gender energies are reflected. So therefore the red and white will flip. That makes total sense. So it doesn't mean, you know, one system's right, one system's wrong. It's just not understanding it correctly. So, okay, I hope that helped you a little bit. I don't know what actually we were referring to way back then about the red, white, and blue. As far as the Buddhist meditation, it doesn't ring any bells. So hopefully that helps a bit. Do you have anything else on?
Yeah, this question's a little long. From Yantra. I have been observing the tendencies of my mind. I am looping about clients and how I can help them. When I do mind training or simpler practices like 1 to 10 count or spinning practice, my mind tends to drift over towards clients. In the more complex foundational practices with mantra, visualization, mudra, my mind is quiet and I feel a sense of connection. But I fear that this is because of the intricacy of the practice. Even though my mind is centered around helping others, I feel that these actions could be dipping into the realms of human, hungry ghosts, etc., rather than completing positive karmic action. How can I buffer all of this?
Okay, complex question. Hopefully you heard it all. So Kendra, yeah, and everybody else who's a practitioner of some kind of healthcare or something like that out there, it's a constant question we have. It's a two-part question. What I got from it was your mind is really busy thinking about how to care for these clients. It invades when you're doing mental meditation, right, where it doesn't involve your energy in your body and so forth. And then the second part of that question was, am I generating too much thought about helping others? Is that becoming its own kind of samsara? Of course it is. We're always in samsara. We just have to do the best we can. But let's just start with the first one first. So you described a very typical dilemma, is that if a person has a very busy mind or a wandering mind, either way, cloudy or hyper busy, structured, both of those are difficulties of the mind. And we try to work with that directly through meditation practice. We may find an acceleration of that interruption, an increase in distraction. We leave the present moment of the practice going out more and more rather than become more quiescent. We can't find that state of tranquil abiding. It's quite common, actually. And many people at that point say, I fail at meditation. I'm horrible at meditation, right? Heard somebody the other day just say this. So, and then you said the counterpoint, which was great, because I would suggest it anyway. When you're more involved with the meditation, when you're doing something like a ritual action with the puja, and you're doing some mantras out loud, and you're visualizing something, there everything gets coalesced and gets peaceful. You don't have so much distraction and so many other thoughts coming in and out. So that is where you need to go, right? When we go to sit down and do 1 to 10 count, and it's just a blur, a snowstorm of thoughts and distractions, no matter how wonderful they are. I want to save the planet, I want to save my clients, I want to help them, whatever. I want to be a bodhisattva. Doesn't matter. It's all interrupting your meditation practice, right? So at that point, it's a serious obstacle. So it's advised that you would do a meditation practice that incorporates more of body, speech, and mind, or to bring in more of the body, speech, and mind from the beginning. Here's a suggestion. I know you've gone through Trika method, so you've probably learned exercise of centering. So if anyone's listening to this and they don't know what I'm talking about, go to trikamethod.com, go to the core journeys, go to the mind journey, and learn the exercise of centering. It's in the first or second week. Now, why? So Kendra, what this will do, by going to the centering exercise and then moving to any type of meditation you want to do, you're already going to be well rooted in present moment awareness, not just from your mind, but you went through the whole body structure, whole body sensation, merging and commingling breath with body structure and body sensation. The energy of living presence, the heartbeat, the breath, everything, the warmth, the coolness, all that's integrated. And then where we usually go next to integrate with some kind of sound, some kind of sight, you can do that with your ritual action or looking at a deity's yantra or a deity's image, or you can do it with your mantra, concentrating on the mantra. You can even see the words in Sanskrit or Tibetan as you do it, or be staring at it in front of you as you do it. And this way you're much more completely engaged. Your job then is to try to constantly and subtly, softly re-invoke, keep the pulse of that centering exercise while you move into the other meditation proper that you're trying to do. And this will help you stay there, right? And keep all the energy of body, speech, and mind engaged, which is crucial, because if we don't have all body, speech, and mind engaged there, really, we don't get much development, to be honest. So much of the beginner practice is learning how to get those all together. Also, Another major element of our practice that people just don't want to deal with today, not popular on all the tantric yoga websites of the world right now and Facebook groups. But here's the truth, because I can't tell you anything else. It's yogi here. If you don't purify the deeper samskaras, they interfere with your practice. That's all there is to it. You have to be pure. Oh, we don't want to say pure Dharma. That means things are impure. The whole world is lovely and there's no such thing as impurity. Okay, let's call it limited. I don't care what you want to call it, but we have to get rid of our limiting conditioning. We have conditioning from being in this world, in society, in our family, in the school we grew up in, from our past lives coming through. That's actually what takes birth, is our conditioning. So until we really run off a lot of that conditioning through the so-called purification practices, Shakti Shaiva Foundation practice, deep contemplations, developing a deep desire to grow, for character change, to go beyond your own limitations, until we really work at that level for many years, right? We're always going to have interruptions to our level of meditation, to our meditation practice. We're always going to have interruptions, obstacles. People that have really worked that stuff out, focusing is natural. We call it natural concentration. So look at it from two levels. One, you got to find a technique that really matches where you're at your current place. We know the 3 hallmarks of authentic tantric practice. One of them is to work right where you're at. So if right where you're at is mental meditation, gets me too distracted. Engage the energy, engage the body, and I just mentioned one way to do it, okay, with the centering exercise. So we have that, and then we have also the idea that we have too many karmic obscurations still rattling around in us, and that makes it very difficult for us to concentrate or to call down, like I said earlier, to Tejasini, calling down the yantra, the divine energy into the yantra of the body, mind, or of the yantra physically that you're using. If we are distracted, that won't come down. If we don't have that kind of purity inside, we can't resonate with the level of purity of Sambhogakaya, Dharmakaya beings that we're trying to call in. It's impossible. It's like you have a phone and they're talking on a whole different system, microwaves, you know? So it's like you're not going to reach them. So this is how it works, yeah. This is in a nutshell, okay, Kendra? Now, the second part of the question, for everybody who's kind of caring for anybody at this time, is it possible to form spiritual materialism around even a concept of helping others? Absolutely, absolutely. I see this a lot. Now, it's difficult because we want to serve other beings, especially if your system has the idea of being a bodhisattva. You know, you want to like try to bring everybody to realization along with you. That's a beautiful intent to have in your heart. If your system doesn't teach you to do that or have a practice for it, like in the Shakti Foundation practice, we do prostrations and we try to resolve the ancestral karma and resolve the karma of the future of our life, our past and our future, so we can join the mandala, the divine mandala we see in front of us that we're visualizing. Well, we have to get rid of those negative karmas, otherwise we can't really bring those energies in. We can't really touch those energies, you know? You can't bring a high-level pure energy into a solid rock and think it's going to do anything. It just bounces off, right? So we have to resonate at that level. In other words, you have to really become first that which you want to become, which is kind of like, what? That doesn't make sense. Catch-22 there. But it's true. There's an old saying in the Shaivist yoga tradition that says, you have to recognize yourself as Shiva before you can recognize yourself as Shiva. And it's like, well, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but what we're saying is you have to elevate your energy and refine it out of the cesspool of our normal samsara before we're going to be able to call in divine beings to help us, you know, come into our yantra, or before we're going to be able to even realize our own divine nature in that sense, which the beings that we call in through meditation, mantra, yantra, ritual practice are reflecting our divine nature to us, right? Okay. So we can make a concept out of helping and serving and so forth and lose that energy of purity, because as soon as we self-grasp, listen, all you in this community of practitioners out here, as soon as you self-grasp, you drop from the non-dual energy to the dual energy. That's what's such a joke about people saying, oh yeah, I meditate and I stay in the non-dual energy for an hour and then I go on to my day. Sorry, just no. Because if there's anybody doing that meditation, that's not non-duality. If you have any kind of experience in it, that's not non-duality. I mean, we have to be really humble about this. That's really hard to do these days. It's best to say that we are refining our ability to move into the semi-non-dual. And we're yearning within our heart for the non-dual reality of our own being to express. But we're not there yet. It's good to stay humble. This way, when I think about serving my clients, my patients, my students, whatever you have, your children, excuse me, then, by being humble in this way of serving, you won't form a self-image around being the healer, right? Especially the healer types. I'm going to speak to you specifically. Teachers, definitely yoga teachers and healer types. Today, it is one of the largest, most pan-human obstacles I've seen and experienced on what people write, what they say, Facebook, videos, workshops, to be somebody who's in the know as a teacher or somebody who's a healer, you know, calling yourself a healer, even thinking about stuff like that, or thinking you did something for somebody. Nature is the only healer, you know. When people say I'm a healer, it's a joke. It really is a joke. The joke's on them because they don't even get it. The last time I said this on the website, we lost like 70 members, so we get ready for the hit again here. But that's the truth. I got to tell you the truth. So we can form these really deep self-images around I'm a healer. I heal people. No, you don't heal people. You might give them good information. You might do some little energy magic or something like that if that's what you believe can happen. But the truth is their body has to heal itself. That's it. You know, that's the way it works. So yes, Kendra and anybody else who thinks like this, if you're a yoga teacher, a spiritual teacher, a healer, or whatever kind of person, whatever you do, psychologist, psychotherapist, social worker, you can all get caught. We can all get caught in thinking that we have this identity as a healer, we have this image that we're creating, and thinking that we have a direct impact on our clients, that they need us, right? It's subtle. You probably don't walk around going, oh, they need me, they need me. What you have to do is meditate really deep on it and go, I do have this sense that they need me. I do have this sense that I'm important in that way. It's a type of self-importance, a type of being special. You know what I mean? I'm specially sent from God to be this great divine healer. You hear people say this. It's even on their bios. And you go, wow, really? So it's quite incredible. So we have to work on expunging that kind of impurity. Humility, 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 purification practices, the Shakti Foundation, you know, and so on. And then that'll rectify itself. Hope that helps. Excuse me. Yeah.
Lulu asked, can she combine asana practice like the wind, fire, and water series with the Shakti Foundation practice? And if so, where should it go?
Okay. All beginners who are looking at doing wind, fire, water practice series from the Kundalini Hatha Yoga, or if you have level 1 training in the Hatha Yoga with us, where do you do it in relation to your other practices and so forth? It's kind of really up to you, but the system is designed so that if you have the time to begin with the yoga practice, even a short bit, it's going to wake up your experience of being embodied. It's going to wake up your experience of being in your physical body and the energies of living presence, you know, that actually run through that physical body, emanate from it and so forth. And then from those, we can have experience of the subtler energies we're going for in the other practices. But without that, we're disconnected from this world. We're disconnected from our base energy. And there is no possibility of transcendental energies having any real effects, right? Because we haven't brought them together in our body, speech, and mind, which is really so important in Mahasiddha Yoga. So, short answer, do it in the beginning because you can fire yourself up. It's usually the way to go. People who are doing and moving into the stages of like stage 6, 7, 8 meditation on a 12-stage view, if there's anybody out there listening, you self-assessed and think you're in stage 6, 7, 8, it's much better to get up and go right into your meditation and then do the yoga after. Okay? Good. Hope that helps. Lulu.
There was a little bit of a follow-up question from her.
Okay.
About it.
Follow-up from Lulu.
She's a bit confused about where the Refuge Mandala should go. Like,
Yeah.
should she open with the yoga or is it part of the Shakti
Yeah.
Foundation?
If you're doing Shakti Foundation practice, just follow along 1 through 12 and do the Refuge Mandala where it is. If you're starting off the morning with some yoga and you want to also open up the mandala for the day, that's just a fast mandala of essential guru yoga, which you learned on retreat, and just opening up and awakening and enlivening the energy body with the red body meditation, with the 3 bindus, 3 channels, right? And doing the bija mantras for them, the mantras for purification of the elements, and the mantras for purification of inner and outer prana. And then boom, you go straight into your practice. Okay, good.
Timo asked, I have a question about the Buddha realms or pure lands.
Which realms? Buddha realms? Buddha realms.
Where some people go after they die to continue to practice until they attain enlightenment. Are these realms considered to be part of one of the 6 realms, or do they fall into a different category? Okay.
Yeah, those realms fall into a different category. So Timo's asking, he's been reading some Buddhism, and they talk about this realm being one of the 6 realms, and then there's purer realms, realms that are purer, you know. This is usually called, in general, this whole category of where we exist is a desire realm, and then after that there's the form realm, and after that there's a no form realm, and after that there's no realms, and we're pure Buddhas. So that's this general way to think about it. So yeah, we're on the bottom of the totem pole at this point, and because we grasp so strongly on our individuality, we grasp so strongly on thinking that this is solid, even though physics tells us it isn't, but we still think it's solid, you know, like not in motion, all these atoms and molecules in motion, with massive amounts of space between the electrons, protons, neutrons, gluons, neutrinos, blah, 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 tons of space between everything. So we're really space, and we're really in motion. It's quite incredible. We really are the base, which is spaciousness and the potentiality of energy, or motion, dynamism. So, Timo, what was this question again? Oh yeah. So when we talk about the 6 realms teachings, we're talking about the realm of desire. Like all of those 6 realms relate to ways that we get stuck in desire. So when a god gets enlightened from out of the desire realm in general, means they're not practicing anymore or living anymore as a samsaric god, but they become enlightened. They move to a whole different realm. They move outside of the desire realm. They're still a god, or maybe they change form. This is possible too, but they move outside that realm. So in general, yes, we're in the samsara realm. We're down here in the 6 realms, and the 6 realms are really just a catch-all for, you know, the tantrics would say 64,000 realms. Taoists say like infinite realms, you know. So it really is just a catch-all for 6 pretty neat categories where you can put tons of different realms into within this desire realm itself. What's the hallmark of the desire realm? Just like it sounds. We think we lack, we feel separate from everything, so because of that, we act out through ignorance all day long, trying to fulfill the empty hole, which can never be fulfilled from the outside, because in actuality, it doesn't exist. We've just misapprehended it, right? Or it can also be seen as a desire realm because we're unconscious and we're just running into everything and dealing with this whole world as nothing but an object world. Like I'm an object, bumping into other objects, people, situations, other objects, you know, in time and space. As if we occupy this thing called time and space that's littered with all this astral junk, objects, people, and situations, planets, solar systems, whatever. And we're just boing, 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 like a pinball machine bouncing around, hitting all this. That's the desire realm in a nutshell, thinking that we're accomplishing something, right? So that's what the 6 realms describe. And they help us. That's why I think the 6 realms teaching is so crucial, so important. We have to get that first because we have to learn how to stay in present moment awareness as much as possible. And in doing so, to reflect on the urge to move into one of the 6 realm fixations, which we can feel with our emotional reactions. We can sense with the shutting down of the openness and connectivity of the semi-non-dual mandala we're trying to maintain. And we draw back into that kind of individual nature, you know? So hopefully that helps you understand that, Timo, okay?
Mark asks, regarding dream yoga, until I can attend the sleep dream dying retreat, would you recommend the version of the practice given by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche as acceptable, compatible with the TMY Dream practice?
Is that Mark?
Yeah. No, Lee.
Mark Leib, okay. So yeah, Mark, yeah, that's fine. You know, it's no problem. The dream sleep yoga that Tenzin Wangyal teaches is fine. So sometimes if you go deep into it, of course, he's giving it at a public level in a book or a teaching out in a public place. If you go into it deeper in the Bon tradition, which is one of my traditions, then of course there's like really specific mantras and specific deities to work with, you know, depending what level you're doing in this practice. But the principles he's teaching of it are very sound. The book Sleep Dream Yoga is good enough to get started for sure. Just for people who are going to come in November for the 3 spots we have left, or in the future, we usually run it every November. We run the yogas of dream, sleep, and death. And we try to explain everything about those different states of consciousness, how to work with them, and so forth. The teachings I've had, I was fascinated with this subject since I was a little kid because I was petrified of death. I would be visited by spirits all the time, so I was always kind of quasi-transitional between realms. Visited quite physically a lot of times. It wasn't something I was dreaming or whatever. So it bothered me a lot because I thought, you know, when I die, what happens? I certainly don't want to end up with a lot of the beings I've been meeting in my room at night. Some would be great, but most of them when I was a kid were kind of scary. So I wanted to know all about this. And I was obsessed with death and fear of death quite a bit. So therefore, when I got into the Dharma teachings, I would travel a fair bit to meet with teachers and learn in open public workshops or privately their dream, sleep yoga, and death teachings, death yoga. Now, I did that with Shaivist gurus, like my own gurus when I first started with in India, Tibetan teachers from Vajrayana and from Bonn, and Taoist teachers, Chinese Taoist and American Liu Ming, who was also a Taoist. So I've done it from 3 pretty big traditions about dream yoga. And I noticed that they all have a lot of very similar techniques, very similar conceptual frameworks, and so forth. And that just varies based on, you know, are you Chinese cultural, Tibetan cultural, Indian cultural? Basically, that's about the biggest differences. So it can be done, dream yoga can be accomplished, sleep yoga can be accomplished, and transiting the bardos after death, etc., can be accomplished without adhering to any one of those specifically by doing the generic experience of it through the Trika Mahasiddha Yoga. But there's one caveat I want to make to that, so I give more of a complete understanding of that to you, Mark. When it comes to transiting the death states, the after-death states, dying and after-death states, that's when our lifetime of practice shows up, or lifetime of non-practice shows up, which, you know, I'm fond of telling that story. If you've seen Fierce Grace with Ram Dass, he talks about how he fell over and had a stroke and thought he was dying in that moment, totally paralyzed, looking at the ceiling in his room, and realized, oh my God, he had a panic. I haven't achieved anything in my practice. In all these 50 years of practicing, I haven't achieved anything. So we don't want to get to death and have that kind of a realization. So even though Trika Mahasiddha Yoga takes a very generic approach towards all the yogas, and this includes the Kundalini Hatha Yoga, and as well as the dream, sleep, death, and so forth, we should feel by being involved in the system and coming to get through the preliminary and foundation practices and then pick one of the ways. And when you go into one of the ways, we should find the icons of essence that resonate with you. So we all need to know, what kind of practitioner am I? We do that kind of typing during the foundation training, like we just did one here. And when you get what kind of practitioner you are, you see what kind of relationship you can have more closely related to certain deities. You'll be resonating more like certain deities. Then, by practicing on those deities' images and mantras and so forth, through your lifetime, and the masters that go with the tradition and so forth, but the same set, you know, for as long as you can until you die, you've set up a really deep groove in your consciousness so that when you die, you'll be able to easily recall, when you come out of the dark phase and you begin to wake up in the after-death state, you'll be able to easily recall those practices, those masters, those deities, whatever, and begin to practice again immediately and be drawn straight into their mandalas, their enlightened mandalas, gain liberation out of the human realm into one of the enlightened mandalas. Doesn't mean you're enlightened yet, but it means you get to practice in that enlightened mandala with the deity or deities or the masters of that mandala. So they'll continue to give you instructions, you continue to move up. So I want to make that really clear for everybody that even though, it's kind of a caveat, even though the Trika Mahasiddha Yoga is very generic, and that's how I learned it from my teacher, and I see the unity of all those non-dual systems and teach it that way, when it comes down to the death yogas, right, death and dying, we want to, not when we're just dying, but way before, have our best entry, you know. Most people are not going to get completely liberated in this lifetime with a rainbow body. So knowing that, we're going to need some help in the after-death states. And that's why we want to have a stairway to heaven, as it's called in the old schools, where you have levels of reality and sacredness laid out for you step by step that you've been practicing with all along, and you can traverse those nice and smoothly with the help of the beings at each one. The other way that this works is for people that don't get into deities and don't get into personifications of universal consciousness and principles. This is where the tattva shuddhi, or 5-element purification practices, and all those elemental type of purification practices become crucial for someone to get very good at, so they can recognize the different states as they come on and keep subtilizing it to move into the pure Buddha realms. Buddha realms here just means, Buddha means a realized being, right? So Buddha has existed from the Shaivist tradition, from the Buddhist, the Shakyamuni Buddhist tradition, from the Bon tradition, the Taoist, the Sufi, the whatever, Jain, Sikh. Everybody has Buddhas because people have got full realization, have gotten full realization through those systems. I think once you're a Buddha, you don't really care about what system anymore. But that level, to get to that level, you know, we have to work really hard. A realized Buddha doesn't have to worry about anything. That's why we really would love to be a realized Buddha in this lifetime. And then we go through the death states in a whole different way. It's not even experienced as moving through the after-death states whatsoever. You're already in pure enlightened awareness. Nothing changes. You stay that way. Everything just expands when you lose your mortal coil and you gain the other bodies in the Buddha realms. Yeah? Okay. Hopefully that helps.
Matthew Jones asks, since attending the Foundation's retreat, I have experimented
with what?
With changing my arm and hand in meditation.
Changing my what?
Since attending the Foundation's retreat, I have experimented with changing my arm and hand position in meditation.
Oh, okay.
I have been meditating with palms up, hands on lap, elbows out in forward position, as opposed to hands on knees. It feels more active and has helped immensely with visualization. I have no idea why. Would you recommend differing meditation postures to match different meditations, parentheses, visualization concentration? Okay,
good question, Matthew. How should your hands be in meditation is the question. Do we recommend different positions for meditation? Different positions in meditations are recommended based on what we're trying to do. The hand positions, where the hands go, on the legs, on the lap, in front of you, holding something, there's many different positions that they can take. Have to do with conducting subtle energy through the body, touching marma points, and actualizing the maximal result as possible from that meditation practice. So when you do a specific deity yoga, there are often specific mudras, hand positions, eye postures, tongue positions, body positions, and so forth. So asanas are really not asanas when you do them in tantric puja. They're actually called mudras. So if you need to do 2 or 3 specific asana, yoga asana, during a puja, because the deity yoga dictates that you should have that asana in the puja, so as to subtilize the energy correctly to meet the deity, those are then called mudra, just like you do with your hand gestures, right? So should you experiment with them? I mean, this is kind of a topic for a little bit like the second level for graduate school. For non-graduate school right now, it's better to take generic hand positions, right? So your hands are like that on your knees, or your hands are like that on your knees. Let me see, get in this camera here. Yeah. Or your hands are like this on your lap. You can have your thumbs like that. You can have your thumbs down like that. There's so many different ways, right? I don't know if I should probably show you. So let's have a look. Okay, so this is the way that Bumpos practice when they're doing straight meditation. This is the way that a lot of regular Buddhist type practice would do. They just lay one inside the other, sometimes even crossing deeply like this. This is the way my Taoist teachers, one of the way my Taoist teachers taught me, like this, with the thumbs like that. So that when you become too strenuous, you'll just be realizing, oh my gosh, my thumbs are pointing straight up and pressing on each other. Even the knuckles might be white. That happens after 2 hours sometimes. You're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it, you know. Or it comes like this. They just separate. So your thumbs are like this, and it means like you're spaced out. You totally forgot. You're not even in your body anymore. So this is a nice little meter to use like that, or pressing this one like the bumpos do like this, or like we said here, out on the knees like this or like this, right? Or even just hands up like that on your knees, palms up like that. Those are the general basic positions that you can take that are recommended for every kind of meditation. Then, of course, like I said, it will change a lot. Excuse me, I hope you didn't blow your ears out there. It'll change a lot when you get into meditation practices that demand more specific recircuiting of energy channels towards using different bindus, different channels, different movements of prana. Okay? But right now for basics, stick with those. Good question.
Gregory Dunn asks, does our tradition prioritize different kinds of retreat practice during different times of the year, specifically summer versus winter? Example, can Kumbhaka retreat be counterproductive in the summer?
Yeah, good question, Gregory. Yes, we really do want to prioritize our retreats and what we're doing in the retreats based on seasons. Now, if I'm doing non-conceptual meditation or tranquil abiding, let's say, tranquil abiding, jine, non-conceptual meditation, those kind of things, all year long, fine. There's no problem. You can do whatever you want. It's when we start tinkering with all the energies, right? There's always going to be the answer to all these kind of questions about discrimination, about practice. As soon as we start tinkering with all the different energies and the channels and chakras and stuff, and the bindus, very specific mantras and visualizations, all that kind of thing, then we have to take into consideration the seasons, the time of day, different times of day, do different things at different times of days. Even out through the nighttime, dark hours of the night, there's also a clock, we have to adhere to and so on. So yes, things like Mahakumbhaka, or in Tibetan Duma, they will generate a lot of heat. They must be done in the winter, and not just like winter in Costa Rica. It's not cold enough here. It would be extremely dangerous to do a full Mahakumbhaka retreat in a normal Costa Rican temperature, even up in the mountains. It needs to be consistently really cold, like near freezing, if not below freezing. Otherwise, it's really easy to overheat. How could you get around it? Well, you could find an air conditioner that won't break down and do the practice and blast cold air here in the tropics into a small room. But if you have a power outage and then the heat goes up for an hour or two, it could blow the whole thing. And you might have been in there for 90 days of your 100-day retreat, and you blow it in the last 10 days, you'd be like, oh. So yeah, we want to make sure we're using the proper time of the year. The fall in Northern Hemisphere, where most of you are watching from, some Aussies, okay. So the fall for Aussies, that's like March, April, right? And the fall for North Americans, that's like October, November. That time of year is the time when we really can make great strides with retreats that rejuvenate our base energy, our real great base energy, our power. Like a Chinese medicine person would call it kidney energy, let's say, or jing, kidney jing, something like that. That's where that's really good to do. Like a lot of people I read nowadays in New Age tantric yoga and so on, and even classical tantric yoga, they want to practice sexual meditation, or they're practicing sexualized meditation a lot. That's not so great to be doing in the summer. Like a lot of it in the summer, it creates too much heat. Again, it's just like doing the Mahakumbhaka or Duma. Anything that's producing a lot of heat, warmth. So it's any kind of passionate practice. Holding your breath and squeezing, creating that heat, generating heat with heating mantras and heating diet, using alchemical foods which are creating a lot of energy and power. Those are all warming foods. Very few are cooling, very few. Sexualized meditation, warrior training, etc. All that stuff in the summer should be like just cool, just cruise. When spring gives way to summer, just go into, okay, now I think what we'll do is just maintain with a bit of steady, tranquil abiding practice, very soft yoga, that kind of thing. And then the cold snap comes, in North America, it's usually a quick change into the fall. Okay, now you can start doing warming practice again. By dead winter, you can go full on heat practice. In general, we want to think about it like that. Yes, very good.
Alexander Sutton asks, is Yoga Nidra practice in your tradition?
That's a funny question. Is it in our tradition? Alexander Sutton, and for anybody else who's out there, Swami Satyananda was the person who invented Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra did not exist as a practice before Satyananda. So it's very much in our tradition, as he was my first Sadguru. So Yoga Nidra is very powerful. We know a lot about it, a lot more than is written in the books about it. So when I teach people about it, I really want to go into depth with them about it, because I was fortunate enough to receive much more in-depth teachings about it and how to use it as a real tantric yoga meditation, and how important it is in the dream, sleep, and death yogas. It's extremely powerful when you know how to use it the right way for helping with the dream, sleep, death yogas and transiting the after death states. Yeah. So yes, that's a huge affirmative. We have a lot of Yoga Nidra training, and it's very important. So when you get around here, we'll go through it. I probably will never put the deeper stuff about it on videos though, but just know that we have it, okay?
Matthew Jones, I have also been enjoying a tuning to peripheral vision as a second attention practice, soft and relaxed eyes. Would soft and relaxed eyes be a result of our main practice, or can we use the cue to relax and soften the eyes directly as a practice? I was wondering which approach is more fruitful.
Good question, and great that you're exploring these things like peripheral vision. I'll give you a few answers about it because it's something I like a lot. In yogic practice, vision is used a lot. And you'll hear me use a lot of examples when I'm teaching the foundation levels, even later on, middle levels, from intelligence community training that people do, where it's based on awareness, visual awareness all the time, what's called situational awareness. We talked about it even at the retreat you were just attending, Matthew. So I've trained a lot of different kind of visual awareness practices. They exist in a lot of spiritual systems, and they're really great. And they are good. We should use them. In general, unless we're needing our focus visually to make sure that we make it through a tough mile or two of traffic without killing anybody on the highway, we don't want to be too peripheral, too spaced out. You know what I mean? When we need it, we got to focus our eyes. That's just the way it is. But in general, yeah, if you're just walking through the town, you want to stay really open, try to defocus in general and let it all open up. Yeah. Of course, sometimes, what's the matter? What happened? Frozen? I can't see any more people writing in, so I don't know if... It's
the last question. What is it?
I don't. It doesn't show anything like it's not broadcasting. Okay. Can someone send, you want a quick email? Do you want a quick email? To you, just let someone out there say they're getting it. We don't know if it's your computer.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, so we had a computer glitch, sorry on this end to delay. So about visual again, okay. Now, yes, take a soft, open visual, allow things to open up as you walk around, don't lock in. This is a really great practice, and I'll tell you a few great things I learned how to do with this from my teachers. So we'll do a little class on this, a little advanced meditation class. When you are noticing that your mind is so busy and so distracted by everything, your eyes are closed when this is happening, let's say you're meditating, you see all the distraction, you don't realize that it has a visual component to it. Maybe you do. Maybe you see the words, see the thoughts, see the events, but it has a very strong visual component because our vision, the sense of vision, the fire element that goes with vision is highly conditioned before it even reaches your brain, your consciousness. So when you walk around, you hold a soft, open attention, just see if you can keep your eyes from locking on things. That's really powerful practice. It's so powerful. Just relax it, constantly relax, don't grasp. Don't grasp. Don't space out where you don't see the hole you're about to step in and break your ankle, or the dog coming up to bite you, or the car hitting you in the street. It's not that. It's just soft without grasping, so that actually everything comes into your field. That's what happens, actually. It's not like you disappear. It's more like everything comes in your field without grasping. And in this integration practice, you'll come in and out of grasping. So keep coming in and out, keep softening, then your grasp soften, and then grasp soften. Keep doing that over and over again. And while you're in that, notice that when you grasp, have a noticing that when you grasp, you'll name it. 9 times out of 10, you'll grasp and you'll be naming it right away. Or you'll grasp it and you'll be assessing it. Cold, hot, wet, dry, heavy, I like, I don't like, doggy, house, blue, whatever. Loud sound, ooh, you'll be naming it in your mind and giving a qualitative assessment. So there's a name, a qualitative assessment, and the experience of it visually. They come up so quickly, like this all the time. When you soften and open up your visual awareness as you're walking around, you get to do this all day while you're walking, doing work, whatever you're doing in the physical world. Take away the naming. Take away the qualitative assessment. So let's say I'm going down the street and I'm in this open, soft thing, and then I see this guy or gal that I think's like my enemy, my hater. So many haters these days. I was just watching a comedian last night talking about it. Everybody just hates on everybody now. The internet's terrible. So you see one of your haters. Well, if you're in that soft, open visual field, you don't have to recognize them as anybody different than anybody else. You see them, you notice, like you notice everybody else. But no qualitative assessment has to be made. Their name doesn't have to come, and you don't have to qualitatively say, they're a hater, they're a meanie, they're so wrong, I deserve to have revenge. There's nothing there. It's just a human being, right? And in that experience of seeing without naming, without qualitative, but being directly connected, the opportunity for real non-duality, but real compassion, real sense of oneness with beings opens up. And in that compassion, that oneness can come next, because we have to have the compassion before we get into the non-dual. People that, like to say they're in the non-dual state of meditation or walking around integrated, but you feel they don't have real connection to other beings, real compassion. You can guarantee they're not really in the unitive state. The unitive state is preceded by compassion and suffused with compassion, a oneness of interbeing. So this is one way you can practice this, Matthew, and everybody else. It's really brilliant. It's integration training. And if there's one thing that I really think is wonderful about our tradition, is that I think we have integration training really down, because integration meditation is more important than what you do on the cushion, literally, much more. Eventually, they'll balance out to be equally important, but for at least the first 10, 15 years, the integration meditation or integration training of the states of consciousness and energy that you're cultivating on the cushion in moment-to-moment daily activities yields far more results than sitting down. In other words, you can sit down and meditate and visualize that hater person coming into your field and deal with it quite nicely and easily and think, oh, I'm so successful. I'm such a great compassionate meditator. I don't have any issue with that person anymore. And then you see them, you run into them at the mall or something like that, and all of a sudden you're completely flustered. I just had this happen. I was back in the States and I ran into somebody who had a little bit of tension with me in the past and we never really resolved it. Just ran straight into each other, face to face, a foot away. And I had a big smile and I gave him a big hug. And I don't know what the other guy was thinking, but it certainly looked like a freight train just ran through his head. So, there's this other way of being where you don't have to have these qualitative assessments. You can be in a state of love and compassion with anybody, even people who don't love you. So let me give you a few more tips because this is a really great one. Another great one is to hold a staff, right? A big, long staff, maybe like an inch in diameter, like a broomstick. And hold it up like this between your knuckle of your index finger and your thumb. That's how I was taught to do it. And you put it up your eye level, right at your eye level. Just like not where it blocks your vision. So it's just below where you can see past it, but you can still see down the lengths of it. Now here's the weird part. We used to hold that for hours and do kind of breathing. And don't worry about the breathing pattern. Just be aware of your breathing and hold it and keep dissolving the desire to have this straight ahead focus on an object. And imagine you could see down the lengths of the broomstick or the staff, right? We use these staffs in martial arts, so we use the staff. And the weird thing will happen. For moments at a time, it'll be as if your eyes went like a fish, and you're looking at the side. You didn't lose the front, but you actually are seeing into the distance at the side. And your peripheral has become almost like mainline vision on both sides simultaneously. I don't know how it happens. I'm not that good of a neurologist. I'm okay. I did well in neurology, just dissecting little brains, but I don't know how this works. I really don't. But I know it does work because I've experienced it and it comes from ancient tradition. All my teachers have experienced it. My classmates experienced it as well. So you can do that, and that really opens things up. Now, why do this again? Because, again, unhooking your eyes from the unconscious conditioning, your vision, the fire element, from the unconscious conditioning to see, name, qualitatively assess, and then go on about it, and then associate it with other things, right, in your mind, can be broken. It must be broken if your mind is to be free. If you're truly to be non-reactive, which is truly to be loving and compassionate, full of wisdom, to enter the non-dual realm of the siddhas, we have to become like that. So training the vision really helps with that. That's a frigate walk you were doing too. It trains your vision the same way. Above the horizon, expansive, right? Just telling Suki, another exercise she does on the beach, esoteric exercise from the tradition, you can really expand as well. So there's that one with the stick you can try, Matthew. Another one that's really great is I used to sit between or stand between the train cars in India. India has, no safety regulations whatsoever. So I used to sit on top of the train for days when I was going places, or I'd stand in between the cars or sit in between the cars. And you can meditate. Now, you're sitting between the cars, maybe it's like a meter wide, and things are flying by. 60K an hour, 80K an hour, 120, 150K an hour, 180K an hour, whatever, depending on the train. And you're seeing things fly by. And what my teacher taught me to do was, he said, I want you to see each thing that passes, but do not grasp. So in the beginning, you look like this. You're just like, you're grasping everything that's going by. You're like, I can't see that stuff, and it's too fast, I'm grasping. But if you really stick with it, learn how to relax, it becomes where you can actually see everything going by, like a big texture, without any break in your awareness. You can pick up everything that just went by. So on the train, I would like relax like that. When I got it for maybe 10 or 15 seconds, if I was lucky, on a 3-day train ride, I'd pop my head out real quick, look at the way the train was going to make sure no one's going to hit me in the head. Then I would look back and see, did I just see everything that I thought I just saw? Right, so that's a great practice. You could do that in a car, in a bus, modern train, in England, on the tube, anywhere, actually. So this is some ways to train the vision. Of course, in stages 9, 10, 11, 12, even a little bit in 8, but 9, 10, 11, 12, training the vision becomes extremely important because we are going to actually see enlightenment. Right? The higher level of Mahasiddha Yoga is not about some bhava that you just feel. Some unverifiable bhava that you just feel. Everybody's, oh, I'm so realized, I'm so realized. Then they go to die, and they die like a person freaking out that they're dying with no consciousness. They didn't sit up. They didn't have their breath stop and their brainwaves stop, their heart stop and stay warm for a few days. No breathing, sitting up for 9 days. No, they didn't die like a yogin. They thought they were a yogin because they had no way to check it. Our system is full of checks and balances to know exactly what you're exhibiting at each stage, to know if you're there. It's not a macho thing, it's reality. So in stages 9, 10, 11, 12, you're working to stabilize the actual visual of enlightenment. Yes, enlightenment has a visual. There is a visual of enlightenment. We can't talk about it now, of course, but there are levels and levels of that visual of enlightenment as you go through each stage. And they're clearly laid out in the teachings, and we can talk about them and learn about them as we go through that together. And this is why training the vision becomes extremely, extremely important later on down the line. So you can be a Buddha while you're still living. Okay, a lot on that, but hopefully you found that enjoyable. You don't usually hear about those kind of training methods in books and courses, right?
Julia Ramsey asks, many time and realm thinking patterns are encouraged in our culture. Can you discuss some more subtle time and realm thinking patterns that might be easy to miss when self-assessing?
Subtle Titan realm. Okay, good, Julia. And Suki and I, my wife and I, were just laughing the other day about this, like looking at a lot of the prayers from the traditions that we use. They talk about purifying, the animal realm and the ghost realm and the human realm and the demon realm, and they just go through all these different realms. They often leave out the Titan realm. We thought it was kind of funny. And one of the reasons that the Titan realm is left out is because it's really about the Titans have great ambition. So spiritually, a lot of spiritual traditions want you to have great ambition because they know how easy it is to lose your fire, to get dissuaded from going deeper, to lose track, basically, and backslide, as a Baptist would call it, backslide. So we want to keep that. But now, Titan realm also is a serious problem as you know, from the Six Realms teachings. Yeah, I don't know if you attended mine or not in the past, but it is a real problem. It is a real problem. Now, we know the overt ones, so you're talking about competition, right? Where we feel competitive or where we feel pride and arrogance. That's so obvious as a Titan realm fixated person. What are more subtle ways that Titan realm can show up? Well, the expression of each of these is in body, speech, and mind. So as soon as we say subtle ways that it could show up, we know we're pulling back from the overt physical behaviors. So you're not strutting around with your chest out, all macho, prideful and so forth anymore. We have a different way of looking at it now. We have to look at it through, first, the subtle energy impulse, energy signature of a person, the tone and the way they speak, how they command. Does it have hierarchical superiority and military command to it in the most subtle way? That says, I know, you don't, I'm just going to tell you how to do it because you're a fool anyway. This most subtle way that could be in there. And that's you have to pick that up your own. That's one of the subtle ways it can manifest. So that has to do with our energy state, the way it comes out in our speech, or even the way we just posture ourselves and hold our energy state, right? Someone you could feel like, gee, they don't feel really approachable. That can also be because a person feels very insecure of themselves. There's a lot of people who feel that other people are unapproachable, but it's really about them. But if you feel very confident, very sensitive, very in tune, and you find someone kind of unapproachable with the energy, a bit like, ooh, scary, especially scary like that. So I'm a bit scared to approach them. It could be demon realm, of course, but it could very well be that Titan realm energy. It's a subtle thing you can pick up, right, in the posturing of the person. And then there's the thought, once we go deeper. And there's all kinds of thoughts. There's very easy to see big thoughts, and there's very subtle thoughts in there, just like a construction of the mind itself. Not even a thought, but a bhava of thought that it holds, which can also be very titanic. And again, it has this feeling of, I am so capable. It's a thought complex and a feeling of, I am so capable. And it's really tricky. People that are very capable at their jobs, or very good martial artists, or very good athletes, even someone who's very, very capable with knowledge, can slip from the human realm attachment to that knowledge into more of a titanic realm with it, having a very subtle samsara of capability. Just, I'm so capable, Sugi, anything jump to mind on the subtle Titan realm?
No.
You're doing something else? Okay. So those are some of the more subtle ways it can manifest. Of course, there's tons more. When we get into the Six Realms training, then we get into that in much more depth. But this is the way to think about it. How does it show up subtly in my body, my speech, and my mind? Especially underneath the thinking mind, what is the bhava structure of the mind itself? Mind is mind function. Samsaric mind, the mind of the Titan realm fixation is a function, but that function has a certain structure to it that holds it. There's structure and function, they go together. So mind function has mind structure below it. That structure we call bhava. What is that bhava of the Titan realm that's so subtle, that holds it? And there you go. Because you don't even have to have a Titan realm thought, but you might still have the bhava. You might not even say something overtly titanic, but it has a Titan realm bhava, just to a subtle flavor. And many people will notice when it's subtle, actually, and like, let's say you're a yoga teacher or you're giving seminars or something, people may say, man, you're just so confident and you teach so beautifully, and I get such power from when you speak and so on. And you're like, thank you, you could be completely coming from that bhava of structure of Titan realm, but it makes you an effective communicator, and people get wowed by it, and you get all this great feedback about how groovy you are as a speaker, as a communicator. You're like, wow, I'm so good. And it feeds that whole thing, and you don't even realize it, because you may be doing meditation with a Titan realm motive. So we're talking about motive. Very deep structure is motive. If you have a Titan realm motive, you're doing spiritual work so that you can be more of a badass spiritually. And every time someone recognizes that, it just feeds it. And if you're doing lots of high-level meditation as a Titan badass, guess what? Yeah, your thoughts stop. Your thoughts do stop coming. Everything slows down, like high-level meditation. The problem is, it's a Titan doing high-level meditation. So the base structure, base motive of being a badass, arrogance, basically, and competition, and proving my worthiness, it's all there, but not in thoughts that you generate. And the words don't come out with such condescension. People won't pick up so much condescension. They're going to pick up more ultra confidence, like strength, inner strength, and they'll admire you, But it's all a facade, right? Because you know your truth. If the motive is really not pure, if the motive is about a tightened motive, prove my worthiness, compete, be recognized for the greatness that I am, arrogance, blah, blah, blah. That's a subtle bhava, really subtle. So look to that subtlety. Okay, that's where you might want to look to explore that a bit more. And then when we get into 6 realms training together, we can really go deep. Okay. Any more?
Yeah, there's one more I found. Anita Moss asked, does taking on a plant ally work in well with the dream, death, and sleep and foundation practices?
Okay. Hello, Ananda Bhairavi. Nice to see you online. Or you see me, I can't see you. Does the taking of a plant medicine work well integrated with foundation practices, dream sleep yoga, things like this? Is that right?
Yeah, and foundation practices.
And foundation practices. That's tricky, okay? That's a really tricky question. Here, let's get simple about it though. If my mind is already very busy and the plant medicine I'm going to take raises my vata, it may give a euphoric sensation, but leave me with a vastly inflamed vata, increased wind element. And then my normal meditation I'm trying to establish through foundation practice and so forth is actually impeded. It's kind of tricky because the plant medicine, especially if you're talking about psilocybin or DMT, can open us up to these incredible experiences where the usual self-grasping can stop. It can just fold in on itself for a minute or an hour, and you're like experiencing everything directly for the first time. Just like I was saying with the visual experience that you learn to do through the staff training and all this other stuff. You can have all this experience of being in the world without having to have qualitative analysis going on, without having the inner commentator have to talk about and name everything and grasp with your eyes. It all comes from self-grasping. So those experiences are good to have through plant medicine. If you can't get it through meditation, if you really can't get it naturally and you use a plant medicine, Kundalini Hatha Yoga always called it aushadhi, right? Getting it through a plant or a metal, a chemical, but ingesting that. But it's out of your control. So the best outcome that could come from that is, I recognize what it would be like if I didn't have this self-grasping mechanism generating all this thought all the time, which is sort of like a little bit of a reference of your base. And then you can take that reference of your base into your practice. But you're not trying to reproduce the drug experience. That's the problem that a lot of people have. But it felt like this when I was having that non-self-referential moment. It felt like this, it felt like that. Well, that was because you still had chemicals running through your brain, right? That's different. We need the essence of the non-self-referencing to be reproduced without trying to reproduce the spiritual so-called drug experience, okay? And that's where it goes off the rails. It goes off the rails medically because we may have too much wind element or too much fire element to get stirred up by these drugs and can create a long-term problem, even from moments of use. As you know quite well because you used to live with me in that area of Australia. One of my dear students had a schizophrenic break and never returned from it when he refused my advice and ate only, 2 seeds from a datura plant. He never came back. You remember that? Very sad, young guy. So you have to be super careful. People say, well, I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty solid. I'm like a kappa, this or that, and then boom, they have a schizophrenic break or something else. So we have to be careful. But of course, the potentiality is there to have some momentary experience of our base, and from that to be a reference point for what it's like to not self-grasp, and then see, this is what the practices are aiming at. This is what the practices take as our base experience, no self-grasping, and build upon that this incredible enlightened mandala that I will then inhabit. And that way it can be good. But in general, of course, now we're online with lots of people here, maybe 100. The point is, I don't want to delude anybody. to think that, okay, at a foundation level, a person can do these kind of drugs. That's not really what I would recommend at all. I'd really want a person to do their 100,000 prostrations, their 100,000 mantras of Maharat Jaya Gayatri, to do the prayer and dedication prayer and offering as many times, hundreds of thousands, really deeply saturated in body, speech, and mind through really mastering exercise of centering first and stuff like that, before they had to try to get a glimpse of the base using a drug. Because there are many, well, the vast majority of Rainbow Light Masters have never, ever used a plant medicine, right? But okay, some of us maybe need that plant medicine. We need this thing to give us that extra bump because we're older, we have less vitality, we can't do Kundalini Hatha Yoga that much, or can't even sit long enough to do the meditation that you do. I'm like kind of sleeping, nodding out, and I don't have enough energy or time or in my life left to cultivate enough health and vitality. So I need a little help. Soma. In the Vedic days, they called it Soma. And Soma, from what a lot of people say, had as an ingredient THC from marijuana that was in there. Datura was in there, the plant Datura, which is a DMT based plant. But DMT is like ayahuasca, right? One of the chemicals in ayahuasca, Datura, the plant gives DMT. So that can give that incredible ripping open of the fabric of the universe as far as you're not grasping anymore, you see everything fresh and new. That was in Vedic times, but I want you to think about it. Who was enjoying this in Vedic times? I think this is very interesting. This was given not to yogins, right, but to lay people. I think this is fascinating. And the tradition exists all the way down through time, that even Satchidananda and his, and so forth, in that line, they did this. At Shivaratri each year, the yogis' Christmas time or New Year's time, whatever you want to call it, in the middle of winter, the guru would give a massive hit of a drug to all the students, cooked into a milk kind of concoction that was made with mantras under the moonlight all night, but also had a drug in it. Some natural drug like Datura or hashish, THC, etc., to try to get the mind to suspend. So devotion practice is happening all night long while the person is drinking this soma or some type of drug that will open up some way of lessening self-grasping, and they would have some experience. Now, this was done, like in the Vedic time, it was made a certain time of the year and the whole community would partake in it, right? This was very common in ancient communities, to take a drug one time a year, big celebration. The drug was seen as a live being and worshipped as a god or a goddess, and then it would talk to you and so forth, all that kind of stuff. Like when I did ayahuasca in Peru back in the 80s in the Amazon. So I experienced this directly, so I know what you're talking about, and it can be good to open up this way. But think about it. The context was sacred ritual, not a party, and it was given out to lay people. And I want most of the people on this site right now listening, I want you to hear this. It wasn't given to the yogins like this. It wasn't given to the warriors like this. Why? They didn't need it. The point is they didn't need it. They had recognition of their nature through the natural means of Shiva recognizing Shiva via Shiva. Meaning in the yogic practice of meditation itself, the nature of mind recognizes the nature of mind via the nature of mind and the energy of the nature of mind. So it wasn't needed. So think about that context, because maybe a lot of you who are pursuing the yoga path and doing really well at it should just stick in it longer and not try to unbalance yourself by taking a so-called plant medicine. Whereas some of you who may have been super earnest at the path for 20, 30 years, really going at it, still haven't felt like, I'm still not really at stage 7. I haven't recognized my true nature. I'd like to slow down the self-grasping long enough just to see it once. I can go, oh, that's me. Then I know what I'm practicing for when I sit down again. Still continue the arduous, or at least regular practice every day on your meditation cushion at the altar. But then at least you have some reference point. You have confidence actually comes with it as well, right? So there are both sides to it, and hopefully I explained both well enough that people can make an informed choice. Good.
And you're at an hour and a half.
We're at an hour and a half, and I'll do a few more questions. If I can try to make them brief, I'll do my best.
So Caroline asks, do thoughts move in the Ida and Pingala as wind?
Caroline Nice to have you online. Yes, do thoughts move in Ida and Pingala as wind? Wind moves through all the channels. That's it. Right? Through the whole body-mind structure. Hits every marble point. It's so fast. So yes, thoughts move through both channels, both sides. When we say thought, why don't we think of a thought as encased in emotional energy, or emotional energy as encased in thought? You know, they're really the same thing. So there's content of information, data type of content in both channels, right and left channels. There's also an energy, a power to do or manifest in both channels as well. And they have the same flavor. This and this, they have the flavor of this one, and this one has its own flavor. So red channel, passionate. I have a lusty thought, I have a lusty feeling. That's a thought, feeling, boom, it's all in one, right? White channel. I have an anxiety, a fear kind of feeling. It's cold, it's tight, it's restricted. I have thoughts that go with it. Anxiety, thought, you know, and fear feeling, boom, goes together. So it goes like that. That's wind moving through those channels. Now, we want to purify that wind through all the practices that we do, especially through the yogas and through the prayers and through living basically the four immeasurables, trying to attain an equanimity in our life, trying to have a steady state of joy, steady state of compassion, steady state of love, right? Joy, equanimity, love, and compassion. If we can try to cultivate those all the time, do our prayers, and pay attention to how we eat, of course, so the wind doesn't get too high, and how late we stay up at night, things like that. But also how we practice to train the energy of the wind in the body-mind so it becomes more along the lines of nature. Then all that will go down in those channels. And we'll experience the virtuous side of the right and left channels instead of the samsaric side. Good question.
Andreas Humph asks, what is the criteria for assessing when it's time to give up deities and their practice to just reside in plain awareness of what is, when deity yoga becomes an obstacle?
Good question, Andreas. When do you give up deity yoga, of working with the deity, and move into the higher levels of meditation that come after deity yoga? So classically, when you go through the generation practice of deity yoga, then you hit the completion practice. In the completion practice, it all comes together. Now, we're definitely a householder tradition, but that does not mean that householders didn't take retreats. I have contention with Harish about this a lot. He says, no, it's a householder tradition. We're talking Tantra. You know, you're just a yogi doing all that hermit stuff. And I say, no, that's not actually how it was. In India, tantric householders who did so-called household tradition had meditation huts in their backyard and would take a week or a month or a year or 10 years and do their thing right there amidst all the family stuff. And people would take turns using it. It was just a normal part of life. It was householder in that way, because you have to go into an isolated retreat for certain accomplishment of your practice, period. Doesn't matter if you have kids or not. Doesn't matter if you have a rug shop and you're passing it on to your kids. Doesn't matter. So we have to get completion of deity yoga before we go to the meditation where we let go of the deity. That completion almost always happens in retreat, right? First get introduced to deity yoga, you do it in retreat. That's how it should be done. You're first introduced to it, you get the puja, you get the mantra, you get the visualization, you get the shlokas, you get the contemplations, you get the text, a murti maybe, a statue, a painting, whatever, and your guru gives you all that, consecrates you with the deity, introduces you directly to the deity's energy and mind, and boom, you're off into retreat. Usually, you know, for a householder, it's like a 1 month thing. Excuse me, could be up to 3 months. But then you come out and then you practice as a householder 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions a day for the rest of your life until you move into that state where you feel like you're going to become the deity itself. Then you go and retreat again to complete the practice. And then there's another level of the practice that you do to complete it where it's no longer you and the deity separate. That completion practice is done. Then, Andreas, at that time, when the completion practice is done and you're really sitting and saturating in the deity's non-dual experience, and that has become stabilized. Key word, sthira in Sanskrit, sthira. It has become stabilized. Then at that point, when it's stabilized, you're ready to move, if you want to the next stages, which are more non-conceptual meditation based on having beautified and quelled all of that discursive energy that was running around before by becoming the deity. All the channels being crazy and the vata running all over, the mind crazy. When you become the deity, it all just comes together, boom, like that. And then you have that completion phase. Now you can move into meditation that really doesn't involve the mind anymore. It's actually much deeper than the mind. So in some ways, the deity yoga is seen as, really powerful preparation for that kind of meditation, definitely, by people who practice the way of water in our school, that do ritual all the time. Okay? Same thing in Kundalini Hatha Yoga, the way of fire in our school. People who practice that, eventually, they're not sitting down huffing and puffing anymore and jumping through postures. I mean, that's what you do just for fun at that point, just to maintain a bit of youthfulness. Now you're into deep meditation that is way beyond the mind, actually, because of the base. The base was created with the yoga, or the base was created with the deities. It's the same, then you jump off. So the key is you're ready to jump for it when you've become that deity. When you become that deity, when that non-dual state of the deity is stabilized within you, that's when you're ready to jump off into the meditational stages and not worry about keeping up with the deity yoga anymore. Of course, having become that deity, it's kind of like you never lose that part of your personality. So you may express as the deity, actually, but you're working with a level that's way beyond that kind of form practice at that point. Hopefully that kind of nails it for you, I hope.
Last question is a follow-up.
Last question.
Titan question.
From Julia?
No, from Wendy.
From Wendy.
The Foundation's Prayer 9, Dharma gets confusing for me with Titan lava elements. I catch myself but then shy away from these prayers and practices. What is the proper way to antidote Titan's spiritual materialism and following the path? Humility. This is the same answer, actually. So in the Chakra Foundation practice, part 9, I think, right? Dharma Hero Heroine Prayer. In part 9, you're learning how to say, hey, the world's a lot bigger than me, and I'm going to play as if, whatever happened to me is not such a big deal. Now, there's a certain maturity that has to be there in a person before they take that step and say, I'm tired of complaining about my traumas. I'm tired of talking about, blaming everybody and everybody around me. My gurus, he didn't give me what I needed. And my wife, she doesn't give me what I needed. My husband aren't good enough for me. My kids don't love me enough. And my job, I never got a raise. People just blame everything their whole lives for everything. And they never get any spiritual development. At some mature place in your life, you're ready to go beyond that. So blame is ridiculous. So you become a really whole human, very powerful. At that point, practicing the Dharma heroine or hero prayer and the visualization mandala and the prostrations and so on is really powerful and not titanic. Why? Because now you're feeling more of a sense of a oneness, a camaraderie with all beings. And you're realizing, I'm kind of okay. And I'm going well on this spiritual path and everything feels great. And I wonder what I could do to serve others. That becomes like a natural impulse. When that's a natural impulse, that's where you really try to be that Dharma hero, Dharma heroine. Before that, we just say the prayer once a day or twice a day when we do the practice without trying to live it all day long, because it wouldn't be real for us yet. We have to get out of blaming and accusing everybody else, and we have to love ourselves deeply, so deeply that it spills out and we don't really care about ourselves that way anymore. You still love yourself, but it's not something you have to think about or generate. It's just always there. And now you're thinking, how can I serve others? That's when the Dharma heroine prayer and the external integration of it in your conduct and your bhava, your feeling, become real for you without it becoming titanic, without it being some kind of macho, ego pride way of looking powerful and being seen as a great helper, fixer, So it's about humility, and it's about being ready. So it's the answer I said earlier about being humble, and it's also about when you're ready psycho-emotionally, to move into that. So if we don't feel psycho-emotionally ready to step into that role, which should come onto us very naturally at some point as a Dharma hero or heroine, like a bodhisattva, then what we do is we say the prayer and see the beauty of it, how wonderful it will feel when I join this community of practice and I feel the same way as all these great masters did, as my fellow practitioners do who are ahead of me on the path. And this is the thing.
cool as, you know, spiritual groups of practice, communities of practice should not be competitive. When you see people ahead of you in practice in that community, you should celebrate their achievement. Because in celebrating their achievement, you draw it to yourself. In recognizing it and celebrating and think it's wonderful, you awaken that inspiration, aspiration quality within yourself. It really is terrible, and a terrible sign of immaturity on the individual and a whole community of practice when there's a lot of like competition for who's moving up higher, you know? And it's sad when you see that kind of thing. So we want to celebrate others and our community. We want to help to lift up the ones who are struggling, celebrate the ones who are getting great attainment. It's beautiful. And this is the way we want to approach it in the beginning, to help inspire us and inspire and so forth, okay? So humility and that approach, okay? Good. So that was nice to be with everybody for Yogi to Yogi, or Yogin to Yogin, the neutral, the neuter. This is what we'll do every now and then on Facebook, and we'll be setting up the Patreon page really soon. We're going to get some coaching on how to do that, because we have no idea how to do that. Oh, we get it? Oh, we get it. Ooh. The staff here is amazing. And then we'll start offering a lot more things through that as well. Okay, so until then, integrate, love everybody, really care for everybody as yourself, and really enjoy your life fully. Be sweet, be kind, don't be mean. Don't blame anybody for anything. It's a sure sign of weakness and the demon realm fixation. Don't blame anybody for anything. Okay, till we see you again.